Progressives seem to hate Starbucks almost as much as they hate Chick-Fil-A, and the passing of Barbara Bush next on The Dr. Duke Show. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Duke, and thank you for joining us. As always, I'm joined by Katie Petrick of The Healthy Republic for the Countdown. Katie, what stories did you bring to the desk today?
Well, in the name of boycott everything, I'm boycotting everything this week. Everyone is being tribal and not listening to facts, so everyone's just boycotting. And we start out with everything being stupid at Starbucks. There's been outrage and, hashtag boycott Starbucks all over Twitter after last week when two black men were arrested for loitering outside or inside of a Starbucks in Philadelphia. Basically, the story is that one of the men wanted to use the bathroom, and to use the bathroom, you're supposed to purchase an item. He refused to purchase an item. The manager called the cops because they refused to leave. The men said they were waiting for a friend, and everything got out of hand, and of course, it got all over Twitter, and now everyone is calling to boycott Starbucks because they're saying that these men were racially profiled, and, white people sit at Starbucks all the time without having to buy anything, and they don't get kicked out.
Yeah, the way we start the show today is exactly right. Boycott culture. This is what liberalism does. This is what the overreacting, hoax-driven, irrational plight of liberalism brings to all of us. All of this fake outrage, all of this emphasis on microaggressions. Again, I've said before on this show that how bad is this country really when you've ran out of macroaggressions, you've ran out of real obvious examples of racism and bigotry, that you've got to go on the micro level. And this is a micro level aggression here. A couple of guys come into Starbucks, and it's interesting. If you look at the news since this story broke, sounds like there's more to the story, right? It's not as simple as two African-American guys walked into a Starbucks, wanted to use the bathroom, were rebuffed with extreme prejudice, and then thrown in the back of a police cruiser. It's more complicated, as it always is with this. But, it's awfully hard to weep for Starbucks. So here's the thing. Same thing happens on university campuses. There are so few genuinely conservative voices on college campuses. You're not likely to find a lot of conservative baristas working for Starbucks. Just doesn't work that way. And so consequently, you see the left is beginning to devour its own, right? That there's a certain perverse pleasure we on the right can take from watching redoubtably doctrinaire entities, liberal entities like Starbucks, take it on the chin. But the danger of this is that this begins to spread. So what you said is about boycott culture, I think, is exactly right. This is a non-story, and yet the president of Starbucks, 8,000 Starbucks are going to have to close one day in May to have racial sensitivity training.
Yeah, so basically the CEO, it wasn't enough for him to first, he came out and said, we apologize on behalf of Starbucks. We're not pressing charges against these two guys. And then he did a video on Facebook, and that wasn't enough. And so now he's called for, on May 29th, Starbucks will be closing the U.S. company-owned stores to conduct racial bias training to address implicit bias and prevent discrimination. And so that's 8,000 stores and how many hundreds of thousands of employees who are going to be hauled in to be told that they are racist and be taught how not to be racist. Well,
and by racist, it means simply underscoring company policy, right? The bottom line was at this store, it was a rule that you've got it. This is in the middle of New York City, too. This is not some rural Starbucks.
Philadelphia,
excuse me. Not some rural Starbucks. The idea that somehow people can just come in and use the bathrooms, restaurants all across the country have that rule. And while it's true that you can loiter in Starbucks if you want to, the fact is that each individual store is allowed to set their own policy with regards to this. The story is more complicated, as we said. They try to discuss this with the individuals. They try to, figure out an accommodation. The police themselves decided, because of the recalcitrance of these two individuals, that they were going to arrest them. And the police chief stands by the behavior of his officers. So the problem with this is that, of course, the craven liberal, the more he backs down, the more he is guilty, right? But liberals haven't figured this out. The more that the CEO of Starbucks backs down, the more he abases himself, the more he engages in this kind of kabuki theater until he is sufficiently appeased the gods of racism. The more, every time he does it, the more he admits guilt. Stop it. You didn't do anything wrong. It's unfortunate that it happened, but there's blame to go around. You think twice about this and you move forward. Stop caving into this kind of racial bullshit.
All right. Well, we're going to have another story that is in the same kind of food industry realm with after Starbucks being one of the leading fast food companies in the whole world, you have Chick-fil-A, who's number 3, actually. And so Chick-fil-A is now being accused by I guess a guy who wrote an essay named Dan Piepenbring. He wrote an essay called Chick-fil-A's Creepy Infiltration of New York City, and he put this in The New Yorker. This man says that Chick-fil-A is a national company, and it's taking down the greasy spoon companies that you find all throughout the United States. And he starts out with his essay talking about, you know, the different marketing tools that Chick-fil-A uses. And it seems kind of, okay, maybe this guy has a different opinion about Chick-fil-A. But he starts to put, he shows his real signs when he says a couple statements, and I'll just read them because you'll see what I mean. In the essay, he writes that Chick-fil-A, with its headquarters in Atlanta, is adorned with Bible verses and a statue of Jesus washing a disciple's feet. Its stores close on Sundays. And he writes this as if it's some sort of abhorrence.
Evil conspiracy.
Yeah. And so he says that, and he's saying with the headline that Chick-fil-A is a creepy infiltration, and it really comes to a head at the end of his essay when he says, "There's something especially distasteful about Chick-fil-A, which has sought to portray itself as better than other fast food." And these are his reasons. Cleaner, gentler, and more ethical with its poultry, slightly healthier than the mystery meat of burgers. Its politics, its decor, and its commercial evangelical messaging are inflected with this suburban piety.
Yeah, I mean, listen to everything that the liberal First of all, you got a liberal New Yorker in Manhattan arguing that the chain restaurant, Chick-fil-A, is shutting down the greasy spoon. You ever been to Manhattan? It is one chain after another. This idea that Manhattan is populated with little greasy spoons that are eking out a living is just nonsense, number one. Number two, read that list again, Katie, of the things that he is really bothered by, one at a time, and I'm going to respond to them.
All right, so to set it up, the Chick-fil-A has portrayed itself as better than other fast food because it's cleaner.
Well, it's true, right?
Yeah.
And so only the liberal can argue that cleanliness,
How dare
when it comes from a Christian country, cleanliness, which is next to godliness, only a liberal could argue, give us dirt. Give us dirt, dirty food, dirty conditions, cockroaches, rats. Give us the whole New York ethos rather than Christian cleanliness. What's the second point?
Gentler.
Gentler. Ah, yes. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, Sam. No, ma'am. You have a God blessed day. Bless you, right? That kind of stuff. No New Yorker needs to hear that, right? No New Yorker needs to hear that. Give us the surly grumble. Give us the scour. Give us no soup for you, right? That's what New Yorkers want. Get out of here with that. What's the next one?
All right. It's more ethical.
More ethical. Oh, boy. Right? The chain that closes on Sunday to respect the Lord's Day. The chain that will bring you extra ketchup to your table, that sends its employees around so you don't have to get up and go pour your own refill, right? This idea that somehow the ethics are a bad thing, that putting customer service first is a bad thing. Get out, in the words of my New York friends, get out of here.
All right. And actually, it goes on a little bit more. The poultry is slightly healthier.
Well, isn't it?
Yep.
Isn't poultry slightly better than, what does he call the meat?
The mystery meat.
So, Piepenberg, whatever the heck his name is. Piepenbrand, whatever he is, right? He makes the argument, the obvious argument, that chicken is better than, not even hamburger. Mystery meat, red slime burgers. And this is a problem because you know what's Vinny without his triple bypass, right? Absolutely. We New Yorkers, we don't want to eat your chicken. We want to be on the table, slices open, right? Give me a break with that to get out of here.
All right, it's politics.
Politics. It's politics, right? Conservative politics in New York. And the very fact that Mayor de Blasio, communist Mayor de Blasio, actually called for the protesting of a Chick-fil-A that opened in Manhattan in the New York area because, of course, their stance on gay marriage, right? The fact that, which is a complete red herring, by the way, Chick-fil-A has employed gay people. Chick-fil-A has nothing against people's lifestyles. They stand by biblical principles. They don't enforce them in their hiring practices. Yet Mayor de Blasio felt that he was going to protest this himself. Boycott Chick-fil-A. We're back on the boycott theme. Didn't work, right? It's estimated that one Manhattan store sells a chicken sandwich, Chick-fil-A, every 6 seconds.
Yeah, and that the Manhattan store is actually the largest store that they have in the whole country, and there's about a dozen more on the way. So you may boycott this Chick-fil-A or that Chick-fil-A in New York, but it's coming.
And I want to make it clear, I love the people of New York. They're the people who rushed into buildings at 9/11. I love New Yorkers. I don't love New York government. I don't love the journalists of New York. I don't love I don't love the New York Times. I don't love Mayor de Blasio. I don't love all of this corporate government corporate collective corruption that you see in New York. The fact is that New Yorkers are voting with their tongues, right? That they are, as this Piepenburg clown, whatever his name is, said,
brain.
right, peeping brain, whatever it is, as he said, as he was looking down from, and this is so typical, right? He was in a building above the Chick-Fil-A. Yeah, looking down on it. Isn't that just the perfect for a New York reporter? He was looking down on Chick-fil-A and saw the lines that extended all the way down Fulton Street, all the way across, right? So New Yorkers, despite the fact that they have questionable taste in politicians, they do know what tastes good. Chick-fil-A wins that battle, despite the juvenile behavior of people like de Blasio and this New Yorker reporter.
Okay, well, let's get back to our official boycotting. We're now going from boycotting food items to boycotting clothing items. And now it's time to boycott bras. I know this is a topic that you would love to discuss. You're so familiar with it, after all, being a man. All right, so basically what happened is a 17-year-old student in Florida is calling for a bra boycott because of a dress code controversy that happened last week with her. She went to school and she wasn't wearing a bra. And so teachers said it was being distracting to the students, and they said that she needed to cover her nipples with Band-Aids. And then this blew up all over Twitter, and she called for a bra boycott at school for this past Monday. And there's an official flyer that said, "Show support for the destigmatization of natural bodies. Girls, don't wear a bra and clip one to your backpack. Boys, put Band-Aids over your nipples on top of shirts."
Yeah, so what's the name of this young woman? She's become
Lizzie Martinez.
Lizzie has become a leftist cause celeb, right? She's been slut-shamed by her teachers. She should be able to wear anything she wants, and if the boys don't like it, that's their own white privilege, right? That's toxic masculinity. But the reality is that there are all sorts of reasons to have dress codes in schools. You can't just wear anything. To turn this into a crusade against women is just nonsense. Some of the teachers who actually were concerned about the nipple issue were female teachers, right? Who evidently need now retraining. The thing that gets me about this is the same progressive liberals who are radically defending this girl's right to have her nipples poking through her shirt are the same ones that went after another student. Talk about that, Katie.
So at the same time that this was actually happening, a University of Tennessee at Chattanooga student is put up basically a graduation photo, her college graduation. She has a picture of her with her jeans, and she has a gun coming out of it, and the shirt says "Women for Trump." And so people are backlashing against her, saying how dare she take a photo like that and have a gun where she has it. They're defending the teenager. They're backlashing against this
the
woman.
same progressives who are defending Lizzie. What's the name of this Tennessee student?
Her name is Brenna Spencer.
All right. The same progressives who are protecting Lizzie, right, her right to show off her nipples, and show up the little meme we threw up here, are the same liberals who are going after the other student, Brenna. We've got the girl on the left here, Lizzie, who was the nipple girl. We've got the girl on the right, gun girl, Brenna. And the same progressives that are attacking Brenna because she's wearing a Trump shirt and is showing a gun. And a little belly there, by the way, a little six-pack, by the way. Well, shouldn't we honor the six-pack? Are the same liberals who are now defending nipple girl. And what bothers me about this is the hypocrisy of it, right? What is a more definitively empowering statement for a woman? The fact that she is armed, she can take care of herself, she's obviously fit, she's confident, she is expressing her political view on her T-shirt where everybody can see it. How many of those public schools, by the way, how many of those public schools, even the ones that Lizzie's in, would freak out if Lizzie or Brenna had showed up to their high school in a Support Trump T-shirt?
Well, I mean, we hear stories of it all across the nation. If you have anything that's...
If you're wearing a Trump shirt, they throw you out of public school. So nipples, okay, Trump shirts not. Go back to the meme we threw up there. That's exactly right. She is boldly announcing her politics. She is carrying her gun. She's demonstrating her own fitness, right? And the progressives are reviling her. Now you go to nipple girl, right? And what do you have? You got a situation with nipple girl where we're going to defend her from slut shaming. Got news for you. You're slut shaming Brenna too. You're politically shaming Brenna, and you're shaming her simply because she's exercising the same right. I'm going to simply close with this observation. Again, what shows greater empowerment for women? The fact that you can see their body parts through their clothing, or the fact that you know that Brenna of Tennessee is capable of defending herself? What's the more empowering issue? And yet progressives shame her for genuine empowerment, and they have no problem rallying behind really simple and juvenile empowerment. So, it is.
And that so-called boycott of the bras that was supposed to have happened Monday, there's been no word of it, even on Lizzie's own Twitter, so I don't think it was a very successful
and by the way,
event.
What better way to show 16-year-old boys that you're angry than to take off your underwear? I'm sure that's really going to cause tremendous psychic damage to the average 16-year-old male. If I understand 16-year-old males quite rightly, they're going to do everything they can to have a panty boycott. You watch, it's coming down the road.
I hope not. All right. Well, moving on to someone I wish everyone would boycott, David Hogg. He just keeps opening his mouth, and now he's calling for more boycotts. He's been calling for boycotts for a while. But
and in Daniel Hogg's case, David Hogg's case, it actually is a boycott, right?
Exactly. There you go. Now he's calling for boycotts on BlackRock and Vanguard Group, who are two investment firms that invest in American Outdoor Brands Corporation, which is a corporation that manufactures 18 different types of firearms, with its principal one being Smith & Wesson. And Hogg, basically what's been happening to him lately is the more boycotts he calls for, the better these companies are doing. So I say he should boycott this show.
If I were a gun manufacturer, I would seriously consider offering him a sponsorship. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm with Smith & Wesson. Here's what I'm going to do. Daniel Hogg, you come work to me. I'll pay you $100,000 a month. All I want you to do is talk bad about my company. Please. Just talk bad about us.
Keep going.
Get out there with your little spindly arms, wave them around in Nazi unification fists. Tell them how bad the Second Amendment is. Tell them how bad Smith & Wesson is. And we'll in fact, not even $100,000. We'll pay you 10% of the multi-million dollars you bring in terms of business for us. The NRA is laughing to the bank with this. I mean, and look, we've reached the point with David Hogg where it's obvious now that this isn't about anybody's health or welfare anymore. So this is about his political career, his particular form of politics, which he's entitled to, by the way. And if David Hogg thinks somehow that his street cred, his opinions are bolstered by the fact that some of his school fellows were shot at, fine, he has every right to do that. If the liberal media wants to continue to put him in front of on Bill Maher's show, great, do it. But if I were these companies, and I think the Laura Ingraham show demonstrated this, you may lose this sponsor, but you're going to pick up that one, right? Free speech is going to win in the end. And because it will, Daniel Hogg, David Hogg's free speech, your and my free speech, gun companies' free speech, that is already demonstrated that it's going to win in the end. And if it keeps winning, the Second Amendment's going to win too, right? Because more people are going to speak out on that. Yeah. Like Brenna Spencer from Tennessee.
Yeah, and so far with David Hogg's call for the Laura Ingraham show on Fox, obviously, that happened a couple weeks ago, and Laura Ingraham was off the next week, supposedly pre-planned. But when she came back, she's had a 20% jump ever since she came back.
And she invited Hogg to be on her show, and he said no. Notice how Daniel Hogg, David, I don't know, I can't get that straight. David Hogg. Do you notice how David Hogg continually is invited on conservative shows, won't go? The only people he's become at age 17, 18, he's become the prototypical liberal. Lots to say when he's around friends, nothing to say when he's around people who are going to ask him hard questions.
Yeah, and he actually now committed his own PR snafu. And he had called that the upcoming walkout, the 420 walkout, which they've planned for over a month now, saying on 420 we're going to do another walkout. We already had our walkout in March. We're going to do it again. This time it's supposed to be for the anniversary with the 1999 Columbine shooting, where we lost 12 lives. But Hogg put out a tweet, and he said, "We've walked out of school, and now on 420, we walk out everywhere. No matter where you are, if it's home, school, or work, walk out. Gun violence can happen anywhere at any time." So he puts this out, and people from Columbine said, hey, we're not going to walk out. This isn't a service day for us. We want to honor our victims. And so all these tweets have been deleted. He then said, "We are still walking out. However, the Columbine community will be committing 420 to volunteering. Once again, we are still walking out. We are still walking out. We are still walking out. We are still walking out." At school, Walkout USA has been working incredibly hard on this. Okay. And then the people came back and said, Hogg, just
stop it.
Stop it.
Zip it.
And so he now says, "I'm sorry for my miscommunication yesterday. I said that we should all walk out wherever you are on 420. That was a mistake on my end and is no longer the case. This is what the Columbine community would like to see on 420. Hashtag Day of Service."
Yeah, I mean, we now see that David Hogg really is an 18-year-old trapped in a 12-year-old's body. We know this, right? And with all due respect to David Hogg and his right to do and undo and say and unsay anything he wants to say, God bless him, keep good doing it. A kid his age with his maturity level, we'd probably expect more from him if he was weighing in on the nipple controversy, something more dear to the hearts of teen boys, than he is on ideas like this, the Second Amendment, which are way, way, way over his head.
Well, and I think his story ties into everything that we've been talking about, because in the country, what we're doing now is react first, think later. And so everything is, I don't like this, boycott it. We haven't gotten the whole story. We don't know the truth of anything. Instead, we take to Twitter, we take to Facebook, any social media we can, and we put out these things saying we're just going to boycott them. We're not going to think about them. We're just going to boycott them. So it's all emotion and no actual reason.
Well, you know, we've never really heard from him or any of his adult, and I'm less bothered by him than I am by his adult peers, the ones that are promoting this, the behind-the-scenes media people who are lobbing him softball questions, the way that the interviews he's been in so far, like the famous one where he was shouting and screaming at Marco Rubio, where neither Rubio nor Dana Lash actually knew what was going to happen. The script was withheld from them. The whole thing was plotted. What he needs to recognize is he's a tool, right? He is a puppet. He's being used for his 15, which is extended into 30 minutes of fame, to serve their causes. He'd be much better off. Piece of advice, David. Go on Laura Ingram's show. Stand toe-to-toe with her. You'll gain a lot more respect from people who don't like you, like me, don't believe you're right. You'll gain a lot more respect from them if you take the fire and you shoot back. If I may, bother you with a military reference. You do that instead of going on the same Bill Maher, going on the same people's shows all over and over again who do nothing but fawn and smile at you, right? You're not getting anywhere outside that very little narrow base that you've already pleased. Try going on Laura's show. I promise you she won't be mean to you. Go on Laura's show and talk to her. You may get bested, but at least you will be taking fire, right? You will be willing to share your ideas with people who don't agree with you. And maybe you'll learn something too. I think you would have a better political future if you do that. Then this 15 minutes is going to run out real quick when they find out the left. And it's starting to happen already with your proposed 420 boycott, right? And the reason that got started, that was a non-starter beginning. 420 is marijuana day, right?
Yep.
420 is National Pot Smokers Day.
That
Calling
day
for a boycott of anything on that day is going to lose you the entire millennial generation. Yep. Time to move on to something else, David.
Oh, wow. Maybe he can go to Starbucks and get a cup of coffee.
He can go to Starbucks, hang out with Nipple Girl, maybe a romance could blossom.
Sandwich.
They could boycott each other. They could boycott sex, right? I mean, to boycott everything, right? He could wear
boycott everything day.
Exactly. Just boycott. Just put the two of them together. They could have little boycott children.
Interesting take.
There you go.
Okay, we do have a question this week.
We have a question of the week.
Okay, so we got a question from Roger in New Jersey, and he wants to know, Dr. Duke, I know you travel a lot for talks. Where do you like to eat when you are on the road?
Oh, my,
I decided to tie it into what we were talking about this week.
Yes, you did. Well, I mean, whenever I can, I live in northern Wisconsin, and we do not have a Chick-Fil-A here. And so whenever I can, for a whole variety of reasons, I visit Chick-fil-A. Now, you can say, aren't you being a hypocrite, Pesta? Aren't you going out of your way to eat at Chick-fil-A for personal reasons? That would be true if the chicken wasn't so darn good. I go there, look at me, I go there to eat Chick-fil-A, right? Waffle fries. I have Body by Waffle Fry. Let's get a T-shirt going on that, right?
Body by Waffle Fry.
Copyright that. Body by Waffle Fry. And the reality is that I love Chick-fil-A. I love their food. I love the way it tastes. I love their service. And honest to God, I love a little Jesus with my waffle fries. I really do. I mean, why not? When you got people behind the counter smiling at you, when you've got them saying you have a blessed day, when they make sweet tea that would make that rings throughout the South. When you have those great fried chicken sandwiches, you've got the pickles, just enough pickles on the top there. I'm getting hungry here. So it's Chick-fil-A. I mean, it's one of those wonderful instances where my own political worldview and activism, how many restaurants can you go to? How many restaurant chains can you go to where you can actually sit in an environment where you know that the owners of the company share traditional American values? Daniel Peepin, whatever, New Yorker yes. columnist, the one thing he didn't say he did was eat the food. All right. All of his typical New Yorker liberal social commentary, none of it had anything to do with the food itself.
I bet he loved it, though.
I bet he loved it, right? I bet he loved it, too. If he ate it, right? If he put down his soy boy latte and his cucumber sandwiches long enough to go down off his office and see the building. And it's interesting. It's never even really specified in his New Yorker piece that he went into the building or that he actually ate. So that's typical. New Yorkers know better. Posers. Give me my shirt. Body by Waffle Fries.
I hope that answers your question, Roger. And if you're like Roger and you have a question for Dr. Duke, send your questions to askduke@fpeusa.org.
Hey, if we get these T-shirts, I want you to keep Roger's email address. Let's get his size and send him a Body by Waffle shirt T-shirt.
Do I get a shirt?
No, of course not.
Okay.
We don't make them in Argyle.
That's sad. Well, also, if you would like a waffle, what is it?
Body by Waffle Fries.
In an Argyle shirt, please send your comments to askduke@fpeusa.org.
In this corner, your pugilistic pundit, the Duke of Diplomacy, the Professor of Patriotism, the Doctor of Domestic Tranquility.
This is Right Makes Might with Dr. Duke.
I believe profoundly in the First Amendment, and there's very little you can say that's going to offend me. And I'm not offended even when professors go off the rails, like Randa Jarrar recently did. She's a professor of writing in English at Fresno State University. And in the wake of Barbara Bush's recent death, and we know, God bless Barbara Bush, she died with the same grace and courage with which she lived. But here's what Professor Jarrar actually tweeted about her death. Quote, Barbara Bush was a generous and smart and amazing racist who, along with her husband, raised a war criminal. Out of here with your nice words, she said, unquote. When she started to get pushback for that vile tweet, she posted the following, and I quote, all the hate I'm getting almost made me forget how happy I am that George W. Bush is probably really sad right now, unquote. That's great. You praise the death of a noble woman, you call her son a war criminal, and you laugh at the fact that her 95-year-old husband is probably crying now. And when she got further pushback for that, she tweeted, quote, I work as a tenured professor. I make $100,000 a year doing that. I will never be fired. That kind of arrogance, of course, as horrifying as it is, I still think it needs to be defended. I don't think she should be fired. But here's the thing. Taking this from exactly the same principles of the left, you know what my free speech stance is, but the left doesn't share it. The leftist academics, leftist professors, leftist school administrators, college chancellors, they do not share my view of freedom of speech. What they believe is offensive speech, racist speech, bigoted speech, speech they don't like, speech that causes people actual demonstrable harm should not be tolerated. I asked Fresno State University today, what are you going to do about that commitment? We know for a fact that when your students post things on Facebook that you consider insufficiently liberal, you'll tax them, you'll punish them. We know that when incidents of so-called microaggressions happen on your college, you will push and prosecute them. So what are you going to do about your professor here? I work as a tenured professor. I make $100,000 a year doing that, and I will never be fired. According to your rules, not mine, there ought to be some consequences. And if all those vile and hateful and derogatory and nasty tweets aren't enough, how about the fact that when she was being pushed by people about her comments, she actually pretended to post her own phone number and said, give me a call. The number that she actually posted was a number for the Arizona State University suicide hotline. So now you've got all sorts of people trying to reach her at a hotline dedicated to helping those who are desperate, getting in the way of the good work those people are doing, and making it harder for genuinely ill people to call. Is that not an instance of actual demonstrable harm? According to my view of free speech, she's entitled to make an idiot of herself. Fresno State University, it's time for you to live by your definition of free speech, not mine. Do something.
Are you a fan of Chick-Fil-A? Of course you are. You know, they'd make a great sponsor for this show. Someone tell your friends. Catch the Dr. Duke Show free online every Thursday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube and Facebook Live. Then listen to it again on the podcast version on SoundCloud and iTunes. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review and talk about Chick-fil-A. And now, it's time for Dr. Duke's Quote of the Day.
The ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus once wrote that the art of living well and the art of dying well are one. And that perfectly exemplifies the death of Barbara Bush. She lived well with dignity and grace, confidence and faith. She died the same way. Now, there are many out there who are taking shots at the Bush family, at Barbara, calling her all sorts of names, accusing her of being the mother of a racist, on and on it goes. But it tells us something about their character, just like it tells us something about Barbara Bush's character, the way she died. Barbara Bush was a remarkable woman. And one of the things that I was most remarkable about her is that as much as she was thrust into the spotlight, you always saw her at her best. She never devolved into partisan name throwing or bomb throwing. She didn't insert herself for no reason. She didn't claim to be a policy expert about anything just because she was the wife of a president or the mother of a president. And when we think about the gracious way that Barbara Bush lived and the gracious way that she died, it makes us worry a lot, doesn't it, about how her enemies are going to die one day. And that does it for us this week. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke, and we'll see you next time.